In recent weeks, I've made quite a few videos looking at the Real Ghostbusters toys from Kenner, but undoubtedly the crown jewel, the absolute centerpiece of this collection of 80s toys has to be the Firestation headquarters. This absolutely giant playset was the single largest piece in the entire collection, and it was the centre of most of the action of my games when I was a child. So for Flashback Friday, let's travel all the way back to the late 80s to look at this playset. Now the first thing you'll notice is that the packaging is slightly unusual for this playset. It is essentially a huge giant box, and it has this image on the front which is a photo, and it has the standard purple background that we're used to seeing with the Ghostbusters toys at this time. However, they haven't opted for an illustrated image as they usually do. This time they've simply taken a photograph with all the various elements and shown those features off in the photograph. The other thing that's very unusual about this packaging is the fact that this image is actually stuck on as a separate sheet. It doesn't actually cover the entire box, it actually just rests over the box, and you can see it wraps around the corner to the side panel here where we have some more photographs highlighting some of the key action features of the playset. On the other side of the packaging, actually printed directly onto the box, we have the Ghostbusters logo, and we have this technical drawing highlighting the key features that are included in this playset. All in all, this is a very different approach to what Kenner took with the other toys in this collection. There's not much assembly required for this playset. It is pretty much one piece with a couple of things that snap into place here and there. And I have to say, this looks really cool. They've done a really nice job of replicating what we see on screen in the animated series, The Real Ghostbusters. And I think they've tried to make it as colourful and as vibrant as possible, and I think they've done a pretty good job all in all. The design is very simplistic. It is after all based on an animated series, and therefore the sculpting is also quite simple with minimal texturing and detail. But what is there is quite nice. I have very strong memories of these vivid red fire doors, and they seemed absolutely ginormous to me when I was a kid. Likewise, I always really love the Ghostbusters symbol on this sign that sticks into the side of the building here. It not only serves to brand this playset, but it also gives it an added depth, an extra dimension to the play as well, which is fantastic. The upper half of the exterior is pretty straightforward, as we've noted already, but it is nice to see some attempt at creating some of that brickwork in there, some of the detailing, and I do really like this purple toned surround, which adds a little splash of colour to the playset and helps it pop a little bit more and seem a little bit more vibrant and fun. Now, I have mentioned that this is a pretty big playset, so to give you a sense of scale, here it is standing next to the Marvel Legends Toy Biz Galactus figure. Now, Galactus is roughly 15 inches tall, so you can see that there's a couple of extra inches on this playset here. I'd say this is comfortably 18 to 20 inches tall. We also have this second exterior wall. This time they've opted to create this sort of rundown, beaten up wall effect, and I think this is really good. I really like the approach they've taken with this, because obviously we have the cracks actually built into the plastic of the playset, which is good. We have those windows on display there as well, but we also have this brickwork that's sort of showing through the cracks underneath. I think this is very nicely done. These stickers work really well, actually creates a sense of depth and texture, which is really fun even today, and I think this looks really good, and it's totally in keeping with the spirit of the show and of the franchise as a whole. It's pretty much on brand, for lack of a better term. I also really like these windows where characters can look out from 2 floors, which is absolutely brilliant. Sadly, there is no plastic windows in place here, so they are just literally holes in the wall, but nevertheless, this is quite a cool, fun touch. If we look at the playset from the rear or from the side, we can see the interior of this playset, which is the interior of the firehouse itself. As you can see, there's not an awful lot here at first glance because it is pretty sparse. But I do really like the sculpting, particularly of the base at the bottom here. We can see lots of rivets and grooves and pipes and bits and pieces sticking out of the floor, which makes it look like an engineer's room, which is pretty cool. And of course we have things like the big column there as well, which just looks a little bit more unusual, a bit more distinctive and unique to this playset, which is great. We also have a couple of extra stickers that we can stick on the wall here to create that effect of Egon's laboratory, some of his mad science experiments that we can see here, which just gives it a little bit more extra texture. It's always surprising to me how effective stickers like this can be to make the world of difference to a playset. Now, there are 2 levels to this playset, and each level has this sort of L-shaped walkway. On this walkway, though, it is wide enough to fit a number of figures, which is excellent, which is great. You can have all of your Ghostbusters on one level if you want, plus a couple of extra ghosts for good measure. Now, you may notice there's actually a rail at certain parts of this playset. I think this is a nice touch. Again, just adds a little bit extra texture, a little bit more detail to the playset, makes it a bit more visually interesting. Although it doesn't have any action features, it doesn't pop away or fall over or anything like that. It is very static. Nevertheless, it is a nice touch. And again, to enhance this and breathe a little bit more life into the playset and give it a bit more colour, we have a number of stickers. We have a bookshelf on one side with some books in there, which is nicely illustrated and quite colourful. On the other side, we have another bookshelf, and there's a crumpled cola can there and a head bust, which is kind of cool and quite fun. Now, whereas on the first level we had that L-shaped walkway, on the second level, the top walkway, we have this huge ceiling effect. And you'll notice there is also this giant red platform connected to the blue fire pole. And on this platform there are a number of pegs which you can stand your action figures on. And this is the first of the action features of this playset, because we can simulate the Ghostbusters sliding down this pole. The roof of the building is moulded in a pretty simple brown plastic. Again, there's a little bit of detail here, but nothing in the way of paint apps to really draw out some of the details that we have in terms of the pipes and whatnot, but it's still quite nicely sculpted. And you'll notice there is a separate plastic piece at the very top. This is a lighter shade of brown, a sort of beige colour, and this is the trigger that sets off the action feature. Simply slide this plastic piece to the left and watch your Ghostbusters slide down the pole. Now, for those of you who are wondering whether this playset is compatible with Ecto-1, the Ghostbusters' main transport of choice, yes, it absolutely is. Now, the playset is ever too slightly short for the vehicle, so it does tend to overhang quite a bit, but it does have this fantastic action feature, which I absolutely loved from the animated series, the title sequence where the car actually bursts through the doors, and you can recreate that here. And before I forget, there is another feature which I've never quite understood. In the top level, there is this cutout that allows figures to pass up and down between floors. I suppose the idea is that you can have a ghost pop up and surprise the Ghostbusters, or have one of your characters and quickly drop them to the next level. Now, the playset doesn't come with too many extra accessories, but it does have this ghost containment and trap. And in both the films and the animated series, this is where the Ghostbusters imprison all of their trapped ghosts. And you may remember that every action figure and vehicle in this line comes with its own mini ghost. And this is where that feature pays off, because you can put these ghosts inside the containment facility. The idea is you take your ghost, you put it inside the trap by simply sliding this door across, popping the little figure inside, closing the trap, then sliding the trap on top of the containment facility, letting it just slot into place there. Then you can pull the trap back, releasing the slide and the figure into the containment unit. And this unit is surprisingly large. You can seem to throw endless amounts of these small little ghosts in there, and it never seems to fill up. It could easily, comfortably accommodate at least 20 of these minifigures. Strictly speaking, there isn't a place for this containment unit, but I've always quite liked sticking it in the side here, in the main centre of the base when the Ecto-1 isn't parked. Now, the final feature I wanted to show you today is this feature that revolves around the slime effect. Now, slime used to come in these little pots that were essentially just goo that you'd be able to release and pour over your figures to create that sort of slimer effect over your Ghostbusters. And here you'll see at the top of the roof there is this open grate. The idea is that you take your slime, you pour it through, and it slowly moves through the levels, coating any of the characters that are in the way in ectoplasm. So there you have it, there's my overview of the Real Ghostbusters Firestation. It's interesting looking back in 2022 at some of my favourite toys that I had as a child. I remember this being absolutely amazing and just a really fun environment to play in. And yet looking back now, I'm surprised by how few action features there actually are for a playset of this size. But what is there is pretty cool, and I do really like how this really lends itself to building a much larger collection. It easily houses a great many action figures and ghosts and even vehicles. It's fantastic that we're able to get the Ecto-1 in there, and I think you could even safely get away with putting Ecto-2, the helicopter, up on the roof as well. All in all, this is a pretty fun playset and it certainly stirs a lot of happy memories for me. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.